I had hoped to spend a week exploring the Rockies, but as I left Denver, I could already tell that probably wasn't going to happen. Wildfires had been raging for months up and down the west coast, and their massive plumes of smoke had spread as far as the Atlantic Ocean. It was only getting denser as I moved west, and as you can see in a lot of this footage, the sky was already turning brown. I could feel it on my skin and in my eyes. Most alarmingly, my nose was on the verge of getting stuffed up, which made the rarefied air of this high-altitude part of the country that much harder to breathe. But I was going to give it a shot. A few hours from Denver is Great Sand Dunes National Park. Who doesn't love a good sand dune? And the incongruity of seeing them in a doubly landlocked state had me intrigued. So this brings up the logical question. How does an area like this get sand dunes? And not just any sand dunes, but the largest in North America. Turns out, a few 100,000 years ago, this area was a lake. Over the years it dried up and was replaced by smaller lakes. They too dried up, and on, as the surrounding mountains eroded into tinier and tinier particles. The winds in the area predominantly blow from the southwest towards the huge Sangre de Cristo Mountains. During storms, however, the wind would blow the opposite way, bringing the sand back down to the valley. Rain and snowmelt would assist, moving the sand away from the mountains. Then the winds would blow it all back in an eternal push and pull that eventually made some really cool sand dunes. I held on to a sliver of hope as I wove my way along the winding road south from Denver, that the air would be clear enough that I'd be able to take some star photos. Astrophotography is one of the most difficult subgenres of photo taking, as it requires specific weather and the right kind of camera setup. And when I say right, I mean expensive. Fast, wide-angle lenses are huge and some of the most expensive you can buy. So it's a good thing that's exactly what I picked up when I was in New Hampshire. I was very ready to test out my new Canon R6 and Sigma 12-24mm f4. If that's just a bundle of numbers for you, let me just say that the lens cost more than my last camera, and rightly so. It's huge. Conveniently, it's also the perfect lens for my day job, with many of my photo tours taking place in the bowels of poorly lit and aging submarines. The great optimism I'd held throughout the drive started to wane as I set up camp. Just a few short feet between my car and my tent were enough to have me wheezing. I'm in great shape, if you consider doughy a shape, and I get lots of exercise, if you consider eating burritos and sitting exercise. But this isn't entirely my fault. Great Sand Dunes National Park is 8,200 feet above sea level. That means there's about 30% less oxygen. 30%. Now, I've never been good at acclimating to altitude anyway, but 2 days ago I was in Omaha, where the highest point is a guy named Fred when he puts on his big hat. So already I knew I was in trouble. There's no way I'm hiking in this. The dunes are hundreds of feet tall, and sand. I feel like I'm dying just walking to the bathroom, but I stick to the plan. I cook my last camp meal of the trip and wait for it to get dark. I am not disappointed. Yes, the sky is somewhat obscured by the eastern-bound smoke, but I get some of my favorite star photos I've ever taken. After a few hours, the moon comes up, washing out the rest of the sky, and I head to the warm comfort of my sleeping bag. And proceed to get one of the worst night's sleep I've ever gotten. Between the altitude and the air pollution, I can't breathe. I wake myself almost immediately after falling asleep, gasping for air. My subconscious is convinced that I'm being strangled and sets off the full red alert. This happens every few minutes for the rest of the night. After repeated bursts of adrenaline bolting me wide awake in fear of my life, I give up. And anyway, the sun is already starting to come up. So I bail. I had booked 2 nights, but this is miserable. It's time to continue southwest, and most importantly, downhill. Mesa Verde National Park is just a few hours from Great Sand Dunes, and most crucially, about 1,000 feet less in altitude. You wouldn't think that would be enough, but it does help. A bout of rain seemed to clear the air a bit too. But because of that rain, I didn't think I'd be able to explore Mesa Verde at all. But when I awoke the next morning, the sky was clear and full of little fluffy clouds. I headed out immediately. Mesa Verde National Park was created by our friend Teddy Roosevelt in 1906. The landscape is stunning, as you'd expect. Rounded off hills of green mixed with sheer cliff faces the color of cream with a dash of coffee in it. Just the way I like it. That isn't, however, the main point of this preserve. With over 5,000 archaeological sites and some 600 cliff dwellings, it's one of the most important historical sites in the world. Not surprising then that it's been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since that distinction's beginning. Humans started inhabiting the area around Mesa Verde nearly 12,000 years ago, first as nomadic tribes, then as either permanent or semi-permanent residents. Cliff houses are, in a word, incredible. It's not just that they're so precariously perched, high above the valley floor, but it's also that they're so well preserved. These are basically cities, for the time and region, multi-level skyscrapers of the ancient world, protected from the elements and any ne'er-do-wells by the cliffs themselves. Some neighboring tribe threatening your village? Haul up the ladders. Then what are they going to do? You can tour some of these cliff fortresses, but given the you-know-what, you need to book well in advance, since group size is very limited. Since I didn't know I would be here this day, or be able to see the park at all because of the impending weather, I wasn't able to. A bummer, though I do have some vague memories of a trip here as a kid. Not that that helps you any. So I viewed them from a distance, and then enjoyed the scenery as I drove back to my hotel after an unexpectedly excellent day. I made one last stop at an overlook to enjoy the sun streaming through those little fluffy clouds. I'll leave you with those sights and some music. Only one video left in this series, Here to Home. See you next time. Thanks for watching.
It's the coldest hand that run down this land where the ocean lands. It's the tallest sound, the damn smallest crowd, but their hearts break loud. Far from ever feeling lost with me, I'll push you back towards the land and sea. They're going down for love, and love is free. Stick with me and I will guarantee you're never lost among the crowd with me. Never lost among the crowd with me. Everywhere you go I'll be. Anywhere you go I'll see. You're never lost among the crowd with me. It's the furthest sun, the gone done for love. It's a pulse and shove. It's the sharpest cry. The here goes, but why? Where the desperate lie. Far from ever feeling lost with me, I'll push you back towards the land and sea. They're going down for love, and love is free. Stick with me and I will guarantee you're never lost among the crowd with me. Never lost among the crowd with me. Everywhere you go I'll be. Anywhere you go I'll see. You're never lost among the crowd with me.